Hello. As you come in, I am going to make sure we're muted. It's going to start with this lunch and learn is going to start with me talking. So I am going to make sure everything is set up on my end. And as we wait for others to join, feel free to do what you need to do to have your own basic needs met. I know that we feel better and we learn better after we've done all the things. So go to the bathroom, get a snack, get a drink, do what you have to do to feel okay right now in this space. Hi, Angela, thanks for joining. So we're gonna hang out for a few minutes. And for those of you who don't work with me, your beautiful faces will be over here if your camera is on. And I have my notes and computer this way, so you'll see me look all around as I get everything situated on my end. The other thing that you'll know about me is one of my coping skills, one of the ways that I deal with life and all the things is I love to be connected to nature. So I have a window over here, no one's there right now, but squirrels and nature and all the things, and that's how I cope with the world. So you'll see me look that way too. That's one of my coping skills. So we're gonna wait a few more minutes here. And others may join us once I get started. Let me see if I can change. I'm going to work some settings here on my end. So I won't hear the sound every time someone comes in because I'll be super distracted. Okay, here we go. All right, going to still wait a few more minutes. So if you're local to me, I'm in the Columbus, Ohio area, and it's super beautiful out right now, super sunny, super nice. It's supposed to be 80 degrees, which we have not had that kind of weather since last year. So after this, I plan to get outside. So I won't hold you too long. I'll make sure that we talk, do what we need to do here when it comes to talking about anxiety, and then we will get rolling. So I respect your time and your privacy. So in letting you know that, so this is going to be recorded because there are people who registered who can't attend at this time. And then there are clients and people on our email list who I share our lunch and learns with. So this is recorded at the beginning, but at the end, I will stop the recording if you have questions and you just want to talk to me without being on camera, without being recorded and having this sent out to everybody. So we are going to start in just a minute here. Okay. So when it comes to anxiety, so here's how I'm starting with kind of explaining what anxiety is and what it looks like. So a lot of people have different ideas of what anxiety is. And I feel like there's a lot of, I'm going to say TikTok therapists. I've been saying that a lot this week. So there's a lot of ways that people are learning about mental health. You know, a lot of it is social media and things that they're learning and specific terms and phrases. So I just want to give a quick overview of what anxiety really is. So you know what we're talking about when people say, I have anxiety or I'm feeling anxious, or what they think anyways. I don't know. Some people don't have it, don't know the exact things when they're saying it. So overall, anxiety is a mental and physical reaction to perceived threats. So that means that I'm having some kind of physical reaction in my body, and I'm also having some kind of mental reaction in my mind. So both of those are happening, and it's because I think something is, I'm unsafe. There's a problem, there's a fear, something's going to happen. So in small doses, having those anxious thoughts and feelings it's helpful. So if you're out camping and there's a bear and your anxiety is telling you you need to move, like to be safe, that's helpful. In a small dose, anxiety works well for you. But in large doses, it's not going to be helpful. So if I'm worried about a bear and I know where that a bear can pop up and get me, if I'm worried every day about different things when it comes to my everyday life, if my thoughts get to a point where it doesn't match with the threat. So right now I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling upset. Clearly I'm about to die. So the threat becomes so intense that it jumps to like worst case scenario. So those are some of the ideas about how in large doses anxiety can be debilitating. So it can be take over our mind, take over our life. So different people describe the symptoms of anxiety differently. So most of the clients that I serve will say that they feel a physical change. So their heart rate starts to beat really fast. They might start sweating. They might feel tension in their body. So I have some clients who get a really intense feeling in their jaw because they tense up their jaw. Some clients who it automatically goes to stomach issues. So they're in the bathroom a lot when they're anxious. They might vomit. They might have diarrhea. Bubble guts is one of my clients calls it. Different things like that can really affect you when you're feeling anxious. When it comes to those symptoms, I also have some clients who are super creative with the way that they describe it. So one client said that when she feels anxious, she feels like she's in a boat and there's holes in the boat. And the only thing she has is her two hands to try to stop up the holes. But water keeps coming in. She's still feeling overwhelmed. There's no way to correct the situation. So that's one of the ways that she feels when she's feeling anxious. So we have a physical reaction. We might also likely have uncontrollable thoughts in our brain. So this is where the overthinking comes in, the uncontrollable worry, super hard to focus and to concentrate. Also might just have one thought that's stuck in their head that they can't get out. So that can be another piece of what happens when they have those symptoms of anxiety. So far, we're about 10 minutes in. I've given you an overview of what anxiety is as a whole. I've talked a little bit about symptoms, and I want to make sure to tell you about the different types of anxiety. So right now, I work mostly with women who are dealing with anxiety, depression, trauma, and stress. I also have a few sprinkling of men that I work with, and then some teens. But the majority of the women that I serve are dealing with generalized anxiety. So that's what most people know to be anxiety. It's where there's an excessive amount of worry in all the different parts of their life. So that can be they're worried about job stuff, they're worried about relationship stuff, finances, career, um, relationships when it comes to romantic and friendships, family, all of that. And it also can be about what I would call minor concerns. So housework or, little tasks that shouldn't make shouldn't make or break our day, but it becomes something that is a part of that anxiety that pops up too. So generalized anxiety is what most people know to be anxiety. And then the other types would be phobias. So that is a really intense fear of a object or a situation, or it can be like a speech, like afraid to speak publicly. And it's considered a phobia because the intense fear doesn't match the threat. So if I'm afraid of ants, I'm afraid that an ant is going to attack me. that doesn't match what the fear really is. The ant is not going to attack me. Not in Ohio anyway. I don't know. I don't think so in Ohio. So that is something that might be a huge phobia for somebody, but it doesn't match, that intense fear doesn't match the situation, the proportion of it. So phobias would be one part of the anxiety. And then another one is panic. And for a lot of people, the panic goes along with the anxiety. And so that's where people describe having panic attacks. They'll say that I couldn't breathe. I kind of went outside of my body. I blacked out. Some people faint. It can be a situation where just you have this overwhelming feeling of dread and concern, and to the point of like, I can't do the next thing. So it can be emotionally feeling that way, or it can be physical symptoms, or it can be both, where both of those things are happening to you and it becomes this panic attack. So a lot of people do have that part of it where it's not only that anxiety of how I feel, but it's anxiety of what happens to my body in those moments that overwhelm. So those are the types of anxiety. And then when it comes to anxiety, unfortunately, for those of us who have anxiety, we do things that make it continue to grow and become stronger. So for those of you that I work with, we've talked about the cycle of anxiety. So with the cycle of anxiety, something happens, there's a perceived threat. I'm worried about something is scary. And so what I do is likely an avoidant behavior to feel better for a little bit. So when I think of an avoidant behavior, that can be something like, I have a presentation in class, so I'm skipping class. So I'm going to avoid going to class so I can avoid the threat. That can also be like, I feel a certain way and I don't want to feel these feelings. So maybe I'm going to drink, or maybe I'm going to do drugs to numb those feelings. And then I don't have to feel those feelings. So then that's another way to avoid that anxiety that I'm dealing with. And the other part, which is probably the most common in the clients that I serve, is procrastination, or delaying the inevitable. Like, I'm gonna ignore the emails. I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that and not respond. I know there's this task to do. I'm just gonna leave it over there and ignore that this is something that I need to do. And so what happens is I feel better for a little bit. My anxiety lessens a little bit, but then it's only temporary. So what happens is, as my anxiety is lessening, it's slowing down, in reality, it's also allowing my anxiety to grow inside me. So it's a situation where when that situation happens again, it's going to be just as intense. I'm going to feel all those feelings. It's going to continue to mess with me because the behavior that I'm doing is avoidant. So it's not really addressing the symptoms that I'm feeling, or the things that are happening to my body, or the thoughts that are in my mind. So unfortunately, that is one of the things that most of us do when it comes to anxiety, and actually a lot of mental health issues. It's avoidance behavior, where I'm going to go to sleep so that I don't have to deal with all the things. And then I'm going to wake up and all the things are still there. So I felt better for a little bit, went to sleep, passed some time. Or maybe I got stuck on this Netflix show and just stayed binging this into this entire show, but my problems are still there when the show is over. So same kind of avoidance behavior, and then that's what helps to continue to grow our anxiety. So when it comes to mental health in general, and with anxiety specifically, what can be best is having some kind of treatment plan. So when you talk to a counselor, if you talk to a counselor or a coach or a mentor, a lot of times what they're trying to help you figure out is coping skills. So that's kind of another one of those TikTok therapy things where there is a lot of talk about coping skills. And basically what coping is learning how to tolerate or to adjust your life to deal with negative events or thoughts. So having a coping skill helps so that you are able to, it adds to your overall wellness. It promotes good health. So so back to the treatment, when it comes to mental health, what can be really helpful is connecting with a therapist, because a therapist can help you with figuring out what those coping skills are for you that can help you. So I'll give you a couple examples in just a sec. So coping skills is one way with therapy. Another way to deal with anxiety, if you are open to it, it could be medication, and it can be literally prescription type medication, but also things that feel like medication that give you the medication effects. So for example, for me, when I go outside, the sunshine, having that sunshine is like medicine to me. So I know that every day I need to get outside and have some fresh air, sunshine when it's sunshiny. And when I'm out there, I know that makes a difference in how I feel physically and emotionally. It's like medicine to me. So that can be another part of treatment for you if you were dealing with anxiety, is having that piece of it, medication of some kind. Um, Not the illegal medication, but the other type. The other thing is when it comes to treatment, what can also be good is learning relaxation skills. So a lot of us have not learned how to relax, especially in our culture. We are hustle and go and stay busy, and we haven't learned what it means to rest. So we know what it means to sleep, but we don't know what it means to rest. So those are two different things, and that's something that we have to really learn how to do, especially if we've lived our whole life just going with no rest. And then for anxiety specifically, therapy might also involve some type of exposure therapy, we call it. And that's where sometimes, like for a client who has social anxiety, where it's really difficult for them to go to certain places, we might make a plan where they gradually go to the place. For example, I had a client who had a really hard time going to the grocery store by herself, especially after the pandemic. I don't know, we're still kind of in the pandemic, but especially now it's been difficult for her. So with exposure therapy, we made a gradual plan where first she was trying to be comfortable with just driving to the grocery store by herself. And then she got to the point where she could drive to the grocery store and go to the front door. And then she went home, and that was okay because she was still like getting her courage back to get into the store. So we had this kind of gradual plan when it comes to helping her to get through that anxious situation. So those are some of the treatment ideas. And then when it comes to specifically working through what having the coping skills. So generally what I do with clients is first try to let them know about what I call back pocket coping skills. And those are coping skills that most anybody can do, regardless of who you are, where you're from, and you can usually do it wherever you are too. So if, there was a client who says that exercise is one of their coping skills, they might not necessarily be able to just exercise in a grocery store if that's one of the things that stresses them out. They're not going to be able to like pull out weights and stuff. But if they do back pocket coping skills, one of them might be deep breathing. So in the grocery store, if they are feeling anxious, they might be able to start deep breathing in that space. So deep breathing is one of the coping skills that we teach. That's a back pocket coping skill. Most everyone can do if they don't have like a major like lung issue or that kind of thing. And a lot of times when I introduce that to clients, they're like, yeah, just, breathe. I know I got to try to breathe. I get it. And usually that's really frustrating to them because they've already been told to calm down and breathe. So totally understandable. But the deep breathing that we're talking about is very intentional and very prolonged in the way that we do it. So when I ask them to deep breathe, they're breathing in for a few seconds and then they're letting out for a few seconds. And I tell them it's like obnoxious. Like this isn't something where you're just like, it's not going to have an effect. But when you do a deep breath the way that we're talking about, it not only slows down your system so that your body starts to respond differently and starts to calm, but it also gets your brain to take some time to think too and to change the way that you feel and to change what you're thinking. So when we deep breathe, we're breathing in very prolonged. So obnoxious, like it's a long breath. So when we're doing that at least 5 times, I would say, especially if we're dealing with anxiety in that moment. And the other thing clients will say is, I tried deep breathing and it didn't work. I couldn't even breathe. Like it wasn't even working during the panic attack. And the other piece about that is we have to practice our coping skills when we're not having an anxious situation. We're not in a panic attack. And I have clients who say, I'm always anxious, and I get that too. But there's probably a time during the day when you're not as anxious. It could be before you're getting out of the car, before you get home for the day. It could be in the really early morning before your day gets started and before everybody wakes up and the chaos starts. So these are times when you practice deep breathing on your own on a regular basis so that when the anxiousness happens, when the panic attack happens, your brain says, "Oh yeah, this is where I do that deep breathing." So that would be part of something that you could try as a back pocket coping skill that you try could be deep breathing. So that's one example. And then when it comes to coping skills, the other part that is really important is to think of something that works just for you. So I have clients who love to run, and that does not bring me joy. I do not love to run. I did at one point. I tried to love it, but it does not bring me joy. However, that can be one of the things for somebody else who really that helps them when it comes to making sure they're feeling well, making sure that their anxiety stays at bay. For me, it's probably walking. So walking for me, it's not probably, it is. Walking for me is something that is specific to me that works when it comes to coping skills. I also have clients who are very creative, and that is another way that you can work through anxiety symptoms is by being creative. That might be painting, drawing, um, pottery, all of those type of things too. Another thing that does not bring me joy specifically, but a lot of people are that way. So if you're like a crafty person, that might be a way that helps you cope with your feelings and your symptoms. And for other people, one of the things that I do is journaling. So that's something that helps me. I like to write. So that can be another way that people are able to work through their anxiety and their symptoms. So those are just a couple examples, but I tell clients that what is really helpful is to have not only those back pocket coping skills, but your own specific coping skills that help you. And it's stuff that you do regularly, like on a regular basis, almost daily, so that it continues to help you, continues to be a part of what you do and a part of how you respond when you have those types of symptoms. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what anxiety is. We talked about what the symptoms look like. We talked about the cycle of anxiety, talked about different ways to treat it, and then also different ways to cope with it when it comes to coping skills. So, what I'm going to do in just a second is stop the recording. So, if anybody has any questions that they don't want to ask it while it's recording, that's fine. I'll be able to stick around to tell you more about it. And then to let you know also that we at Erica and Company, that's my private practice. What we've started to do is have these lunch and learns every month so that it's a free service open to the public. So if you have friends or family who would benefit from learning more about mental health and self-care, this is a great no pressure way for them to learn more and for them to be able to get some help without having to actually see a therapist specifically. We know that's still a stigma for a lot of folks. So that's available. We've also decided to make our groups open to the public. So we have a few groups right now that meet regularly. We have a Monday night creative coping group, and one of my support coaches runs that for people who want to do things creatively, like coloring, painting, those kind of things. Thursday nights, we have a Just Keep Going support group, and that's for people who are working through anxiety and depression and need some extra support there. I facilitate that one. And then we have a Moms Matter group, and that is a moms group for moms of all ages with kiddos of all ages who can meet together with other moms and work through issues together. So that's all available through our group services. And then this summer, we are going to kick off self-care days, and that's going to be a day-long retreat where you can meet us out in the community. We're going to have events for anybody who wants to join us, and that is going to be something that we will make available to clients first, and then to our email list, and then to the public. So there will be limited spots available for that, but you're welcome to get more information about our self-care days in the future as well. And thank you so much for attending. For anybody who registered today, we are going to put you in a giveaway to win a Just Keep Going journal. So we will send an email kind of to let you know what to do from here, and to let you know who wins that. And then also just to give you some follow-up information from this group today. So I'm going to go ahead and end our recording here. And then if anyone has any questions, you can ask me.